Dear participants, it's an honor to welcome you to the second International Conference on Interdisciplinary Educational Reflections at Near East University. Our conference, organized by the collaboration of Graduate School of Educational Sciences and Faculty of Education. Today, in the second sessions of our keynote speakers, we are together with the Director of Education Unit, Associate Professor Dr. Çiset Çavuşoğlu, and me as the Director of Graduate School of Educational Sciences. We are going to moderate these sessions because we have three valuable keynote speakers at this session. Firstly, we are going to start with Professor Dr. Kingshuk, who is the Dean of College of Information at the University of North Texas. He is a very great researcher at the area of educational technology. He has various research publications, books, and conference organizations. He is the co-founder of the Educational Technology and Society Journal, and now currently he is editor of Smart Learning Environment Journal. Now is the turn to deliver the speech of Professor Dr. Kingshuk on the theme of enhancing learning through adapted and personalized learning environments. Dear Dr. Kingshuk, first welcome to our session and great contribution to our conference.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Dr. Kingshuk.
Thank you.
Yes, we can start your session. During your presentation, participants will raise questions and make a comment. At the end of your presentation, we are gonna tell the questions and reflections about your speech. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. So should I start?
Yes, sure.
Okay. So my, okay. Fantastic. So thank you very much, Dr. Altine, for giving this opportunity. I really appreciate your invitation. And as you mentioned, I am working now as Dean of the College of Information at the University of North Texas. And currently, as you know, we all are going through the pandemic situation, and where literally everything is working at social distance. So how do we assure that our students are learning properly? The kind of research that I'm going to present becomes even more important. Now, just so that for logistics, I have two screens, so I will be looking sometimes on this another screen. It's just only that I'm looking at that screen, and I'm not looking at the camera that is in front of me. So just please bear with me on that. Okay, so let's start. Before I start my talk, I'm going to give you a little bit on the kind of initiatives that I'm involved in. There is a book series called Lecture Notes in Educational Technology, especially the kind of audience you have here, all the researchers in education. I'm assuming there are maybe students also, some PhD students. So this series may be interesting for the audience if you are looking at publishing any books, any original books in educational technology, or if there are conference proceedings that have high quality papers or ebooks. So this series may be interesting for the audience. And I would also like to give little bit on the journal that is that I'm involved in, called Smart Learning Environments. This is a completely open access journal. What it means is that no charge, no fee for publishing, and no fee for reading. You don't even need to log in. So I would really recommend that you just go to this website for the journal, and you can see all the papers, you can read the papers. Journal is currently included in Scopus, and also going through evaluation process for Web of Science, the Social Sciences Citation Index. So we are hoping that that evaluation also completes soon and the journal gets into that index, but currently it is in Scopus. And for audience here, I think this journal may be a good source for a lot of very high quality papers have been published in this journal. And I would also like to invite everyone to the International Association of Smart Learning Environments. You can see the theme that the Journal of Smart Learning Environment, Association of Smart Learning Environment, because I'm dedicated very heavily in how do we improve learning process for students, what are the limitations, and what is the situation of our current learning environments, and how do we improve them, how do we, and learning environment is not about some sort of technical environment only. It's about the environment that where our students, teachers, parents, they all play certain role. How do we improve, lobby the policies, and everything is included in learning environment. That's what we call smart learning environment, where we provide better learning experience to the students all over their learning process. So please check out this association. It's www.iasle.net. And if you are interested, please let me know if you would like to participate in it, and if you like to provide your leadership in this association. Then I would like to talk a little bit about the book that the work that I had done in past, put that together as a book. It may be available in your library, but I wanted to put it here because my talk is an extension of the work that was done in this, that was presented in this book. The book is called Designing Adaptive and Personalized Learning Environments. And what I'm going to present today is going to be an extension on top of that, that book. So let's start with how our current education is with the current situation. Everybody is working from home, everybody is learning from home. It becomes even more important than before that we talk about inclusive education. There used to be time when teachers say, okay, I have got, say, 30 students in my class, 28 are doing very well, and I'm okay with that. Not anymore. Every student is important. Every student is individual. Every student, for that student, his or her learning is the most important. And therefore, every student counts. That's what we call inclusive education. The focus is on how we can find what each and every student needs, what are their strengths, individual strengths, what are their limitations, where they need help, and provide that help. Helping them in their own environments, providing them learning that is meaningful to them, providing them learning that they can understand, they can see the benefit. Because we have too many situations where learning has been that, okay, you learn this because someday you need it. Not really. That's not kind of learning that actually sticks. I mean, I give you example, means calculus. We all have done integral calculus in our schooling. Okay, if I ask here people, why did you do that? Did you know why were you learning that? Do you know now why are you learning that? Why did you learn that? Most of us, the answer would be we did it to pass the exam. And that's really the kind of motivation that means that when you finish the exam, that learning is also gone. You don't remember anything. And that's not the kind of learning that is going to help in the future, that is going to help in the career. We need to find ways in which to make learning meaningful. Now, I tell you, I claim that integral calculus I claim that I can make it interesting for kindergarten students. Now you have to see what I said. I said I can make them interested. I did not say that they can learn it, because integral calculus is not kindergarten stuff. But can I make it meaningful? Yes, there are ways to make it meaningful. Let me give you an example for that. Let's say there are 10 small kids, okay? 10 kids. Take them to beach. You know, you've got water, you've got land, and there is this shoreline where water and land touch. Make a square there or a rectangle there and say, okay, you know, kids, all the shells in this rectangle are yours if you can divide that into 10 equal pieces, because you are 10 students, 10 kids, divide into 10 equal pieces, and shells are yours. What do you think they will do? They'll probably create lines and make 10 pieces. You say, yeah, that's good, but you know what? The shore is not exact line like this. It's a wavy line. You have to make sure that that is also equally distributed. Means, you know, fair is fair. Everybody should get shells from equal space. What do you think they will do? They probably will put more lines there, maybe triangles or something. You say, yeah, you know what? There is still a little bit of space still left. And you know, you are putting all this time and it will be evening and you will not get any shells. You know, there is an easier way to do it. And that's called integral calculus. Do you think they will be interested in that? Because now they see the meaning in it. They see that, okay, that will get us shells. We have to make learning meaningful. Now, the example I gave may be not very convincing, but you can put this example or you can create other examples of making learning meaningful. Making learning that works with the individual students' living and work environment. They can find relevance to what they are doing, where they are living. If we can do that, then learning will take place, learning will stick. And of course, that means that learning has to be not just in the classroom. Learning has to go outside. Authentic learning environments play with that. How can we use physical objects and what students can learn on their computers or on their cell phones, combine that to provide better learning experience? What you see here on the side, you see two pictures. A kid is playing with Lego Mindstorm, and there are a lot of projects happening in the world for a long time to use this to provide programming learning, algorithm learning, a lot of different ways these Lego Mindstorms have been used. This is physical objects trying to provide conceptual learning. The same you see at the bottom, you see somebody with a cell phone trying to find something and trying to learn out of it. Basically, using physical objects with digital information, hopefully that will result into better learning experience. That is the overall aim. And for that, we have a vision. Our vision is learning to be omnipresent, learning present everywhere, and highly contextual. Means that it is very much suited to that individual student. Every student learning is customized to that particular student. How can we do that? We can do that by having seamless integration of learning into every aspect of life. Learning is not something that I come to school at 9 a.m., start learning, and at 3 p.m., learning finished. There's no such thing. Learning doesn't happen that way. Learning happens when there is an environment. Learning happens when you see the objects that you can use for learning. Learning happens wherever there is an opportunity. I call it opportunistic learning. You happen to be in certain place, and because at that place you find something that can contribute to your learning, and learning happens. Learning cannot be separate from everything else. So our vision is to provide learning that is seamlessly integrated into every aspect of life. What it means is that it has to be immersive. always on learning. Learning happens whenever there is an opportunity. It happens so naturally in so small chunks, wherever there is opportunity, that literally no conscious effort is needed for active learning while engaging in everyday life. As soon as you come to something, you are doing something, and you find that, oh, okay, I need to I don't understand something. Suddenly, that, yeah, okay, learning will happen here. That's the kind of learning. That's our vision. To provide that learning, we come to something called smart learning analytics. When you have students in different places, students who are not just only in the class, but teacher is only one person. Teacher cannot be with all students in their different places. That's where teacher needs more and more information about the students learning to to be able to provide better learning experience. And that's where smart learning analytics provides that opportunity. What happens nowadays is that lots of data is coming from different sources here and there, and about the student. So let's say there are three terms here: discover all the information, analyze the information, and make sense of the information. What information? Is information about the student, what a student is doing, who the student is, what capability student has, and so on. What kind of instruction is happening, what student is trying to learn, or what teacher is trying to explain to student, and then environment where the learning is taking place. Is it in classroom? Is it in laboratory? Is it in some other outside environment? Because to do that, data is coming from different sources. We need to identify something called learning traces, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But why do we need that? To be able to provide better instructional support in these kind of authentic environments. Okay. Can you hear me properly? If you can just type yes. Okay, thanks. Yeah. So I give you a few examples of where the learning can take place. Means these are just some examples. What you see on the bottom left side of the screen, a picture of some flowers, a board. This picture was taken actually in 2011 in Taipei. There was a very big park. You have to imagine, very big park. Okay, there are lots and lots of different types of flowers going on there. And then with each flower bed, there was this kind of board. I hope you can see the board. On the board, on the left side, there is the picture of the flower. So you can immediately see, oh yeah, there is this flower going on. And then you have some description. There are 3 different languages there in which there is a description. Okay, the Chinese, English, and Japanese. And then there is one very important thing on the top right corner, and that's the QR code. So you scan that QR code using your phone, immediately you get a web page which first shows the picture of the flower, and then it shows certain other information about that flower. So you are standing there watching the flower and reading that board, but then reading more information on your cell phone while watching the flower. And now think about it. This was not any intelligent system or a smart system. But if this was a smart system where as soon as you scan the QR code, the system can detect, oh, you know what? This mobile phone has already accessed this particular website before, and therefore, let me give you now different information than what you got last time. So every time you go, you get different information. That's learning. You are standing there. You have to imagine you are standing there watching that flower, and you are reading more information which is telling you, look at that flower, look at the back side of the flower. You will see some veins there. Look at what kind of butterflies are there. Look, all those kind of things. I mean, that's that kind of learning. You are immersed in learning. Learning is happening because you are doing something with it. Okay, on that bottom right, you see one girl is doing something, and a boy is taking a video of it. So think about it. There, a biology student goes into the park and tries to do a small experiment there, and then another student is taking a video, and then on the right hand side, you see the top. There is a screen where you can put some metadata, some information about that assignment, and upload it with GPS coordinates. And then what happens? Say after 1 week, another student comes there, just happened to pass by from there, and suddenly that student's mobile phone pops up a window telling that, oh, you are learning that topic. There was an experiment done here last week. You have 5 minutes in your meeting. This will take only 30 seconds if you want to see a video. Okay, show me the video. Shows that video of this particular experiment. Okay, how that experiment was done. And then after the video says, you still have some time. If you want, you can do this experiment yourself. I can guide you. You still have time in your next appointment. You can quickly, in 2 minutes, do this experiment here. That's learning. Learning that happens spontaneously. There was no previous plan, but just because a student happened to be going from there and there is little time in between two different meetings, the system popped up that, okay, I can tell you how to learn. So how do we then support in that situation these students? Students are on their own. Teacher is not there. How do we find out whether this student can do the experiment or not? Or if a student is doing the experiment, at that time, if a student needs help, how do you provide help? That's where smart learning environments come in. The smart learning environments, basically, as I mentioned, they take the data from different sources to discover the information, then analyze that information, and that makes sense out of that information. And we talk about these different terms now. So what do we discover? We discover past records and real-time observation of things like learners' capabilities, learners' preferences, their competencies, how much they learn, what they learn, when they learn, how old that information is, do they still remember it, where the learners have been, what did they do there, where the learner is now, what are they doing here, so that we can think what should we recommend them next, where should they go next, and what should they do there, what kind of technology learners have, what kind of things we can give them on those technologies. So for example, if they have a cell phone which has a very small screen. Hello, can you still hear me? I heard some, okay, because I heard some kind of noise. Okay, so if they have a cell phone and with a very small screen, can they still okay, sorry, I think my headphone was giving problem a little bit. So yeah, I think you just let me know you can still hear me. Yes, perfect. Thank you. So what I was telling is that if the technology they have available is the say cell phone, then cell phone has a very small screen and it's not very easy to see maybe large videos, or the bandwidth is very limited and so on. So whatever technology that student has, if we can know what technology, then that will help to understand what kind of learning they can have, what kind of technology surrounding the learner. If learners have if we can find out where the learners are from that technology, for example, if we can see how much light is there where they are, then we can use that information to provide the kind of learning that does not need too much light. Or if we can figure out, okay, if this learner is in library, then we can say, in library, you can give them some audio because they can use headphones, but you cannot ask them to talk because in library you should not talk. So the kind of learning that you provide them should not include them talking. Those are the kind of things that we need to know. All this information about the learner, changes in learner situation aspect, even in the same place, different situation. Before here, even I'm talking now, so nobody else is talking, but before others were talking, same place but different situation. So we need to understand what kind of information we have about the student. Then we analyze that information. what kind of learner actions are, what they are doing, who they are interacting with, what are they what kind of interaction they have with other students, what kind of interaction they have with their teachers, what kind of interaction they have with physical objects in that situation, what they are doing on their cell phone or their computer, what information they are getting from internet, how does it relate to what they are trying to do, what are their trends of preferences. I wrote here trends of preferences, not preferences, because we change our preferences. We are humans. We don't like the same thing all the time. So we don't like same music all the time. We don't like to eat the same food all the time. But the thing is, if we find out, if somehow system finds out what your preference is, because we change our preferences, we cannot assume that this preference will remain all the time. Because whatever the students liked 2 months ago may not be true now. So assuming that once we understand their preferences, that we got that information, no, not enough. We need to figure out how their preferences will change. And now technologies are becoming available where if we can analyze that for a long time, we can say how their preferences have been changing, then we can safely extrapolate to say, okay, this is how they change their preferences. At least we will know that the current information that we have is not enough. We will need to keep finding out their preferences as time changes. And then comes changes in learners' skill and knowledge levels. So how do you detect whether they are learning or not? Typically, we do it by assignments, final exam, and so on, those kind of things. But they are formative assessment. How do we find out there and then how they are learning? Also, how do we find out what they are learning in their living environment? You remember, our vision is to combine learning with their living, whatever else they are doing. So, for example, we all use Facebook. Okay, we go on Facebook. We see some videos. We see some information there. But is there any mechanism that says that learning is happening? We don't have any mechanism at the moment that suddenly I saw some video on the Facebook, and tomorrow my cell phone pops up. Oh, you were looking at that video yesterday. Here is an artifact. Here is a statue, or here is a painting that talks more about it. You can see that what you saw in the video. You can see that painting here. That kind of thing. We don't have that. We need to find more and more such kind of analysis mechanisms to be able to link all the different learning. Means I call it knowledge nuggets. You learn small from different places, combine them to get better learning. And then making sense out of that. And that's where we talk about learning traces. And I'm going to read this definition for you for learning trace. Okay, a learning trace comprises of a network of observed study activities that lead to a measurable chunk of learning. What it means? I'm going to give you an example of that. Let's say there is a small child, okay, maybe in 3rd or 4th grade. So routine, gets up in the morning. It does not like to get up in the morning. Mom has to kind of get up, you will miss your school bus. Finally gets up, gets quickly ready, eats the breakfast, goes to school, comes back, tired, but then there's some homework, does the homework, then goes and watches TV. Okay, and then parents say, go sleep, you will have problem in the morning, forcefully sends to bed. It's a routine. Okay, keeps going like this. And then comes weekend. Maybe weekend gets up in the morning and watches cartoons on the TV and so on. Okay, one day parents say, oh, tomorrow is Saturday and we are going to go for a museum. Okay, I don't want to go to museum. I want to go to the park. No, we are going to museum. And morning comes and they get him ready and drag him to museum. Not many kids like going to museum. So That child is not very happy. Anyway, they drag him to the museum, and now in the museum, are we done yet? Can we go to park? Can we go to park? And parents are very interested in museum, so they keep dragging him, and this child is not happy. But suddenly, child looks at one particular painting, and something is different about that painting. Child, for a few seconds, something strikes that is, something is different about this painting. But then again, okay, I'm bored. We need to go. We need to go. Okay, parents give up. Okay, then they go to park. Child is happy. They come home afterwards, and life goes on. And then school starts Monday. Same routine. And then in the week, after 2-3 days, in the evening, kid is watching the TV, and suddenly looks at, oh, they are showing that painting. Why are they showing that painting here? And watches, listens what they are telling. Okay, now I know. Yeah, I thought that was boring museum, but that painting was something different. I know why it is, and listens to that. Okay, that's why they were talking about. Okay, then time goes. Then next weekend comes, and grandparents call. Okay, and child takes, oh, grandpa, last weekend my parents, mom and dad took me to this museum, very bad, I was so bored there, but there was this one painting, and I thought something was different, and they were showing it on the TV afterwards, and they were talking about it, and this and that. Now think about it. 3 points. Looking at that painting in the museum, suddenly noticing that painting in the TV and listening about it, and then telling grandparents about that painting in his own words. If we take these 3 points in the life, do you think learning happened? Observing, listening more about it, or getting more information about it, and being able to tell that to somebody else in your own language. That's learning. But to be able to identify this learning, how do you know when this will happen? So you will have to monitor the whole thing, everything going on in life. Getting up in the morning, going to school, doing homework, watching TV, everything going on. The data is coming from lots and lots of different sources. Okay, maybe that kid took a picture of that painting in the museum because it was something different. The TV has, the voice is coming, so some microphone has to record it. So all these different data that is coming from different sources, out of that, millions and millions of data that is coming, you need to pick those moments, those nodes in the network that can tell you learning is happening. That's called learning trace. Learning trace comprises of a network of observed study activities. Watching in the museum, watching in the TV, telling to grandparents on phone. 3 activities which put together provide measurable chunk of learning. You can see that learning is happening. And the thing is, these learning traces, because they are coming from so many such information, and there is no way to figure out in advance when they will come, you just have to keep watching. That's why they are sensed. Something has to be sensed, and then supply that information to learning analytics. So all this data that is coming, learning analytics has to analyze. So data is typically big, unstructured or semi-structured, because it's coming from different sources: GPS, microphone, images, log data from the browser, all those different things. And then seemingly unrelated, because what a GPS coordinate has to do with a microphone data, audio data. Sometimes also not quite truthful, because some of these technologies, for example, cell phone, kids takes a picture, and after the taking picture, battery goes off. So phone died. Next time phone wakes up, at home, plugged to the power. What happened in between? Mobile phone has no idea. And therefore, any inference, anything, any decisions that the system can made have to be made on this, partial information, and that may not be quite truthful. And of course, this whole thing also has to be fit with certain learning theories and models. I told you, watching a painting in the museum, then listening about it on TV and telling to parents, learning happened. Who says? It has to be fit with certain educational theory. So there are lots of different things that are part of this making sense of that information. So we discover information, we analyze, and then we make sense out of it. And then we think about, why do we need to do all this? Can we not just see, okay, if this happened, then learning will happen? Not really, because people learn differently. Individual, we talked about inclusive education. We talked about doing all the different things, and for different students learn differently. Here is one example. There is a question: why a pointed object penetrates better than a blunt object? Three different kinds of students learn it differently. A visual-oriented learner may want to watch a video of it to see really what's happening and explain the results. A psychomotor-oriented learner can actually take an object, like I have currently a pen, which on one side is pointed and another side is not. I stuck it on my hand and said, oh yeah, it hurts. And then another side, it's not. Okay, so I can see the difference. Or a cognitive-oriented learner may actually say, you know what? The area is very small, the same force compared to bigger area, same force. How do I do mathematics calculation and find that out from them? Which one of these three students have better learning? There's no such thing, because these three are different types of students. They learn differently. And if we can provide them, if we can understand how they learn and provide them proper learning experience based on these different mechanisms, learning will happen. That's really the kind of different ways in which learning needs to happen. And that's why we need this kind of mechanism of smart learning analytics, because it takes care of all these different ways in which learning can happen. What we need to do that for that is to find out more about, first of all, learner awareness, what kind of performance they have, what kind of metacognitive skills they have, what kind of cognitive skills they have. Cognitive skills, short-term memory. We can keep certain amount of information in our mind for calculation at a time. Some people can keep very little, some people can keep more. Learning styles, also cognitive styles, social styles. There are a number of different styles that are in the literature. The more we know about learner, the better we can adapt learning to them. Affective states or emotional states. Physiological symptoms. They are nowadays with smart watches which have sensors. You can detect a lot about students' physiological situation to provide better learning. I give you an example. Let's say there is a student doing an experiment, let's say physics experiment in a lab, and suddenly the watch detects the pulse, that it's variable, means it's going very high, very low, very high. In medical terms, that means the stress level is very high. When stress is high, then the heart rate or pulse goes very high, very low. Watch immediately connects to a system and gives that information. System looks at, okay, stress levels are high. Let's see what a student is trying to do right now. What experiment a student is doing and what theoretical concepts a student is using. When was the last time a student used this theoretical concept? Do we have information about what was the stress level then? And if we keep monitoring students, over the time, then we will have that information. And that's, oh, okay, stress level was high even last time, and again student is trying to do again high, let's inform the teacher. Teacher gets the information. What kind of, oh, this student has higher stress level, the student is doing this experiment, this is the theoretical concept the student is using. Teacher looks at, should not be the case. Let me see what a student is doing. Let me connect with the student. Or teacher can say, that's perfectly fine, not a problem. Because this concept is difficult, I know the student will have trouble. Okay, so there are different ways in which this kind of information can help. Okay, I'm going to finalize very soon. So I'll just talk about a couple more things here. Technology. What kind of technology is available to the learner? I mentioned if they have cell phone, if they have a bigger computer, what kind of screen they have, what kind of bandwidth they have. All that can help us to understand what kind of learning content we can provide, how we can connect the students to the web or to other kind of information, depending on what kind of technology is available to them. And then location, where the learner is, what kind of learning will be helpful in that particular environment, what kind way, who are the other students in the same environment we can put together. So we can provide optimal grouping of students, we can provide better learning content. There are different ways we can actually understand the location. On the right side, you see auto sensing mechanisms. So for example, Wi-Fi, GPS, and so on, which automatically connect to the cell phone and so on. On the left side, you have got manual sensing, where you have to do something. You have to scan a QR code. You have to scan a barcode. You may have to type in an address. Okay, some technologies work better inside, some indoors, some outdoors. So for example, GPS works very good outside, but not inside the building. Wi-Fi works very well inside, but may not have any connection outside. So different technologies work differently. Based on that, once we identify where the student is, we can provide, for example, better grouping of students based on their different characteristics. We can say, okay, this and this student, they are not too far, let's bring them together. They can help each other, or they can learn from each other, or they can learn together. Okay, and then comes physical objects. If we want to take advantage of authentic learning environment, then we need to know what are the different physical objects that are available in that environment. Nowadays, there are lots of ways in which it can happen. Means we have public databases of points of interest. In Google, people can upload certain images for certain location, and then when other people access that, they can see those images. Similarly, QR codes. We talked about scanning QR code, you can get more information about it. You have Wi-Fi routers. So as soon as you connect, you know where you are. Similarly, active and passive RFIDs. RFID, you may nowadays becoming more common in the shops. Of course, you have a small circuit attached to the thing, so that if you want to go out, if you have not paid, it beeps. This kind of technology can also be used in education. As soon as you go near an object, immediately it tells you what that particular object is. So basically, all that information about a student, their technology, their location, all these authentic the physical objects. Once we know all about that, then we can personalize the learning experience. And this is my last slide that I'm going to use, where we try to see how we can support students in a learning environment. What we do is something called context-aware knowledge structure, and that's actually you have another keynote, Dr. Maiga Chang. This is a work, in fact, done by his group, where he created this context-aware knowledge structure, where the first thing we do is to identify learning objectives. So Maiga and I work very closely. We were together at Athabasca University. We were working in the same group. And this research is coming from that. So identify learning objectives, what a student wants to do. And then once we know what a student wants to learn, we see what kind of activities we can create in that environment. If a student is in a park or in a classroom or in a museum, wherever. So then we propose those learning activities to the learner. And when learner says, yeah, I want to do this activity, then we say, okay, then we lead the learner in that environment to let the learner do the activity. So that's how really we do the learning experience. And that's where I'll finish. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Kingshuk. It's a very nice speech for the new trends in educational sciences and the technology. Actually, everything is for better learning experiences, and you gave us great insight on this theme. Thanks for your contribution. We have a question, and the audience are thanking to you for your speech. Just we have one question. Could virtual simulation be considered as a tool for instructional learning? Can you briefly answer these questions for our audience?
Oh yeah, of course. So virtual reality, virtual simulations, they are coming up very much nowadays with the as learning tool, especially for the situations that are very difficult to create that yourself. Especially for example in medicine, you cannot go and do surgery on something unless you learn first, and providing that is not very, how do you provide experience of that? So virtual simulations can really provide you a lot of background information. Virtual simulations cannot really replace the hands-on experience, but they can prepare you for hands-on experience. So yes, virtual simulations, they are very good tools for instructional learning. Now on top there are coming more augmented learning tools. For example, HoloLens. There are many different tools that are coming up for augmented learning, where you see something and on top you have more information overlay. So a lot of different ways. So yes, I completely agree that virtual simulations are good tools for learning, especially before you actually have hands-on experience.
Every time your strong collaboration and support to Nearest Universe and for our team. Thank you again for your presentation and contribution.
Thank you. I appreciate that opportunity.
So we would like to thank Professor Kingshuk one more time. Our next speaker, keynote speaker, is Dr. David Guralnik, the president and the CEO of New York-based Kaleidoscope Learning. His work synthesizes concepts from several fields with the goal of using new technology to create immersive experiences that reimagine education and training. He is also the president of the International E-Learning Association and the founding chair of the International E-Learning Awards program, as well as an adjunct professor at Columbia University. He is the editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Advanced Corporate Learning, and his work is quite valuable in the field of innovation in education, and we're all very excited to have him as a keynote speaker today. Thank you very much for joining us today. And the title of his speech is Reimagining Education and Workplace Learning in a Changing World. The screen is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's great to be here, and thanks so much for inviting me. I'm going to talk today, as you mentioned, about reimagining education with a focus on the types of experiences that we can produce that can change the way that we work in workplace learning and also in education. So I'm going to start with a story. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a story. This is a story from the psychology literature, and it's one of those stories that kind of, everybody says it's happened to them, and it did not happen to me, but I will tell you the story anyway, and I will not pretend that it happened to me. There's an old story about a woman, and it could be a man, but it's a woman who was making a roast of beef in the oven, and she did it by cutting off the ends. And she would cut off the ends and put it in the oven. So you can see here, she cut off the end of the roast, put it in the oven. And she asked, why do this? There's seems to be no reason to cut off the end. Everything seems unnecessary. What does that do? And she said, that's a good question. Let me go ask my mother. This was how I was taught. This is how I've always done it. And she asked her mother and said, why do we cut off the ends? Her mother said, that's a really good question. It's how I was taught. Let me ask my mother. So she went and asked her mother. So the grandmother, our original character. And why cut off the ends of the roast? What does that accomplish? And she said, well, when I learned to cook, we had a very small oven, and the roast wouldn't fit in the oven unless I cut off the ends. And so the takeaway from the story is this is a tradition, and I'm very much in favor of tradition, but this is a tradition that didn't need to be maintained. This is a tradition that was designed for reasons that no longer were current, and it was time to rethink. Here they were throwing, it seemed like a waste, throwing things away for no reason, only because they hadn't taken the time to rethink what they were doing and why it was the way it was. So the original character here was just following traditional methods without really updating them to match the current reality. We are now at a time for rapid technological change, particularly in ways that can affect our work and learning and development. New technology changes can bring about new methods of interaction. And in my view, that's where a lot of the greatest opportunities are for us in terms of creating new types of learning experiences. We don't want to keep making the roast the old way when we can rethink it and do better. And there are things that we can do differently because we have new opportunities now, particularly thanks to technology. And that's kind of where my thinking is in terms of casting off old limitations, looking at things fresh and seeing what we can do that's different and reimagine and reinvent learning experiences that leverage the technology that we have. One thing I kind of like to do once in a while is look back at the technologies from the past. Every time there's been a technological advance, there are new methods of interaction, and those can help drive the learning experiences that we had. And we saw a little bit of this in the previous talk as well. So if we look back, in the old days, we had radio, right? So radio had audio, and audio in at least a somewhat, these are table radios that I'm showing here, a portable sense. It could be in your house, right? You could be, you could plug it in, couldn't carry it with you, but it would be in your house. That was the audio. Television, video, in your house. And again, both of these had some sort of on-demand nature. You could, couldn't watch anything you wanted on demand. You couldn't listen to anything on demand, but you had some control. You had some user control. You could pick what station to listen to out of the choices that you had back in the early days, back before we could pretty much choose to watch anything at any time over the internet. One next big one was VCRs, video cassette recorders. You could time shift and play shift, so you could watch somewhere else. You could take a recording to a friend's house, and you could watch something anytime that you wanted. So you might have a TV show that was on at 8 o'clock at night, and you could watch it days later, weeks later, months later, an hour later, whatever you wanted to do. So that's another level of user control that hadn't existed, at least in the mainstream before that. Video games, another one where you had all sorts of different controllers, different kinds of interfaces. I'll show a few of those here. Computers at home for everybody. So I put them, where I put them on the timeline when they became mainstream in terms of everyday life, not in terms of when there was the first computer. All sorts of different interaction possibilities, graphical user interfaces and the mouse and touchscreens and tablets and all that, as we then move on to smartphones and tablets. So each one of these introduced different possibilities. And we're best served if we think about the possibilities and don't think just how can we take traditional education and move it to a different medium, but how can we make the most of the medium to produce interesting, immersive, engaging learning experiences. One of the new technologies we have now is virtual reality. That's becoming more and more mainstream. With the Oculus Quest in particular, the standalone device, it's powerful, has gesture control. There are things we can do, and people can have them. They're not exactly affordable for everyone all the time, but they are something that's getting in that realm and getting closer to being something that people can have and that companies can have and universities can have. They have full motion control. We can do a lot by doing simulations, all sorts of other things that we can possibly do. There was a survey done by the e-Learning Guild, which is kind of the best known US e-learning group that focuses specifically on workplace learning, and they run a number of conferences that are specific to workplace learning as well. They asked organizations, do you see opportunities for your organization to use VR in the future? This was a survey done in 2018, and very heavily the answer was yes. So there's a lot of interest within companies, certainly, in doing so. Augmented reality. So interact with the world in an augmented way. This is a screenshot from a version of Google Maps that's, I think, starting to get released, but I don't see it yet when I go to Google Maps. But it's at least something that's in the works and should be released soon. This is potentially great for, among other things, just-in-time performance support. How can we just at the moment of need, get some advantages, get something else to help us. Maybe in the business world, you would need less training. You certainly would with more performance support, and other things. So I may not need to learn how to navigate somewhere if I have, an expanded version of Google Maps. I may not need to learn that now with the existing Google Maps. Augmented reality, also popular in the future. Interestingly, a little even higher than VR, which surprised me. Do you see opportunities to use AR in the future and for learning? And the answer is very heavily yes. There's a lot of interest. Again, these were primarily US companies, but primarily there's a tremendous amount of interest in new technologies and using them for learning one way or another. And that puts us in a really nice position because there's openness to new thinking and new ideas and new ways of doing things that can be different and better and take advantage of the technologies that we have. Another one is holograms. Three-dimensional projections, artificial intelligence. I'll talk a little bit about more later. Means sort of a lot of different things. It's part of what my own background is in. In the early days, was AI in education. We can certainly use it for analytic purposes and sort of intelligently analyzing those. But also, to me, the advantage is how do we really change the experience and not use that information just to analyze how people performed, but use it to produce a much better and more personalized experience for everyone. For each person. And that's the goal to me of AI in education. Other technologies, smartwatches, smart speakers, 5G networks help, foldable screens, rollable screens. On the right-hand side is a headset by a company that provides a way to interpret your brainwaves, and we can have some privacy issues with that, and it might feel strange, but there are interesting things we can do. So we'll leave it at that for now. Lots of technologies, lots of interesting things we have the potential to do. So one question then is, what kinds of experiences can we create with all these new technologies? And to me, key themes behind that are going to play a big role. What can we do behind that? So one is scaling up. One of the great things about technology is that we can scale up. If we can build something for one person, we can build it for 1 million people or 100 million people. Right? And this is, when you look back on the history of education, scaling up has always been a problem. Right? In the early days, we had apprenticeships. People would learn a craft by working with a master craftsman. So you'd want to learn to be a blacksmith, you would work with the expert. You would learn by doing. You would start simple and then work your way up. You would have an expert helping you along the way. You would get better and better. You would have a personal relationship. All of these things were great learning. And certainly with the right relationship, it's a great learning theory. It's supported by the educational and psychological research. And then when we had a need for mass education, there was a need to shift, and we ended up with classrooms which have a lot of, tended to have a lot of, memorizing and testing. You had one instructor, one teacher for a larger audience. You had to do something that would scale up. And that was the thing that scaled up, and it made sense. That's what else could you do? We had lots of workers. They didn't have access to, there weren't enough experts. You couldn't have a one-on-one relationship. But with technology, we can scale up. With technology, we can build it for one and, make it personalized for many people, and everybody can have this experience. And that's one of the things that excites me so much about the new technology that we've had, and that I've been working with certainly for a number of years, since the late 80s, early 90s, and starting to see maybe things getting more mainstream and coming to fruition. Or so I hope and think we all have the chance to influence that. Another theme I want to talk about is user-centered design. It's one of the underlying themes, I think, behind good education. What you see on the screen there is a little MP3 player from 2002 by a company called iRiver here in the US, I believe. And it was a nice little MP3 player. It was one of the early ones. It's very small. You could take it with you while jogging. You could, do some things with it. It was a nice little machine. It was something you didn't have before. You didn't have portable music quite to this level and in such a small device. We had its predecessors, the Sony Walkman with cassette tapes, all sorts of other things. But this was a really nice little device, but it didn't catch on all that well. Same year, this one did, the iPod from Apple. So, why did that catch on when the iRiver, which seems that it would, seems as if it would in some ways. It's small and easy and portable. And a lot of the answer to me was the overall design, and not just the physical design of the Apple player, but the entire process. If you wanted to put music on your little MP3 player on the left, you had to hook it up to your PC, only a PC. You had to download a bunch of files from wherever you could get them, usually from ripping them from your own CDs, which wasn't something that non-technical people necessarily were comfortable doing. You had to name the files something memorable to you with the constraints that you had within Windows and its character, specific character restrictions. So don't use a period because that's going to be for before the file, the MP3 for the file name. And then you would copy these onto your device by plugging your iRiver MP3 player into your computer, copying and pasting files. It basically functioned like an external hard drive. For everyday people who aren't in technology every day, this wasn't necessarily a pleasant and easy thing to do, and it had a lot of barriers. Apple's system was much easier. You downloaded things on your computer, which was easily set for that. You had iTunes. You would find things through a nice interface, put them on your computer. That was easy to do. Plug in your iPod to your computer. Everything would sync automatically. You had you would see the song names in normal normal wording, the actual name of the song, not a file name. You had playlists, and you had some other advantages. So this was a nicely designed thing in all ways, for learners' goals, for users' goals, and for people to be able to use easily on an everyday basis. So that's what design really means to me, and why this was a success, and a foundational principle that I think we want to use as we design education as we keep moving forward. Tell you a different story. This is from a study by a group at Case Western Reserve University from the late 90s here in the US. The study was about radishes and chocolate chip cookies, amazingly, which is why you see radishes and chocolate chip cookies on your screen at this moment. People were asked to come into a room, and they were broken up into two groups. So one group, each room had radishes and cookies in the room. Radishes is something that is generally not considered particularly appetizing. Cookies is something that is generally considered appetizing. I agree with both of those assessments. Everyone has their preferences, but these are at least universal enough that they worked. One group was asked to come in and eat the cookies. They had it pretty good. The other group was asked to come in and eat the radishes while resisting the temptation of the cookies that were right nearby. It's not as much fun for them. This was not the end of the experiment. The experiment then had a second part, which was critical. In the second part, people were given an entirely different thing. They were given a very difficult, unsolvable problem. It was a problem that really you just were never going to solve. In a different area, had nothing to do with radishes, cookies, food, or anything. And what the researchers found was that the people who had eaten the radishes quit on problem solving much more quickly than the people who had gotten to eat the cookies. And the takeaway from this, and they did other experiments to confirm this, was not that chocolate chip cookies are magic and give you energy and you can do anything, though that may also be true, but was that the people had expended resources in eating something unpleasant and fighting off the temptation of the cookies. And that, again, confirmed by some other studies that they did, or certainly was what they found, when that resources, the sort of idea of energy and resources that we have is across areas and across domains. So here you are expending energy to not eat the cookies and eat something that you don't like, and that took away energy from your ability to problem solve. So it's a very general idea, this idea of resource limitation. So taking away from that, we need things that people are going to be into. We need things that people are going to be grabbed by and immersed in and find compelling, rather than sitting in through an experience that's a chore and that they find uninteresting. And that's the world that we live in now. Other foundational concepts: learning by doing. People learn well by doing something active, not by memorizing. Okay. Situated learning. They learn in context. Here are people learning, in an in-context way. So they learn something in the context of doing a real-life task that works really, really well. And education doesn't always have to be a task you'll do in real life, but doing it in the context of a task, not out of context learning. In the workplace, it's so critical to learn in the context of the job that you're going to be asked to do, much as possible. Just-in-time performance support is more of a workplace concept, where you learn, rather than learning in advance, you do something just in time. It's something to help you do the job as you're doing it, and it alleviates the need for upfront training. Workflow learning, again, for the workplace side, learning in the context of your workflow. Goes along with performance support a lot of ways. Collaborative learning is critical. You can learn with the help of other people, and I'll talk a little bit more about how technology can enable that. We're certainly seeing it. Intelligent analytics. What can we do with this, with all this data that we can collect? With a concern about some privacy issues, but what can we do with it? And to me, it's not simply evaluate performance, which is certainly the corporate view that I've seen with some clients that I've worked with. The default is, what can we do to analyze people? And to me, the default is, what can we do to help people put themselves in a position to succeed, put themselves in a position to learn and enjoy and improve? And there are plenty of things, in my view, that we can do. In the workplace, job performance is the goal. A little different maybe than in a university setting. There's learning, just-in-time support, and process improvement, all toward performance. So, there are some differences between workplace learning and education, but in all of them, I see key roles for technology. What makes for a great learning experience? I run a lot of seminars. I teach at Columbia University as well. And when I do any of these things, I ask people what makes for a great learning experience. What's memorable, and what have you really learned? When have you really learned? And one of the things that has been consistent about the answers that I've received, and there have been quite a number of them, like thousands over the years, is very rarely are people's best learning experiences from the world of formal education. They are almost never from the world of corporate training. They're mostly from something informal that they chose to do, or that had some other personal meaning to them. This woman, these are not the actual people, but they sort of resemble the actual people who are in my classes. Her most memorable experience was when her sister taught her to drive a car. She worked with her sister. They bonded over the experience. They had a nice relationship. They had trust. She was able to learn by doing. There are a lot of things that came through here. This person learned to crochet from her aunt, so another personal learning experience. She connected with someone. This guy here had a learning experience that was memorable from childhood. He was on a soccer team. He had great teammates. He had a great coach. He learned a lot. He enjoyed the experience, and again, felt very, very motivated. Compare this to some comments about corporate learning experiences, which I'll put up quickly for you. They're not always like this, but there are still too many of these in the corporate learning world where I spend part of my time. People see it as a necessity, as a chore, as something they must do. They just want to get it done. These comments don't sound as pleasurable as the comments that we heard from the people who talked about their learning experiences in different environments. Okay. So what are some characteristics that we can take away? I start to talk a little bit about them. Personal relevance. All the great learning experiences we heard about were personally relevant in some ways. They cared about what they were doing. They found meaning. There was feedback from the environment, right? So if you're driving a car, there's feedback when, you don't go where you're supposed to go, or, something worse, hopefully not. Hopefully you don't run into anything or damage the car. When you're crocheting, you see where the stitch is wrong. When you're playing soccer, you see when you make a bad pass, or where if you have a shot on goal and you miss. Feedback from a coach, somebody there for you, somebody there to help you, somebody there who cares about you and understands you and knows your skills and strengths and your weaknesses and what matters to you and helps you along the way. And, that to me is such a key factor in all of the stories that I shared with you briefly, the driving and the crocheting and the soccer and many of the other memorable experiences had some form of a coach. And then, and the personal connection went with that. Feedback from peers. A lot of these, not all of them. Two of the stories I shared did not, but the soccer team had feedback from peers as well, your cohort, your co-teammates. Coaching, again, so in a bigger way, not just feedback, but also providing coaching guidance, providing something where the coach is reaching out to you and explaining to you what to do or providing suggestions. So not just when something goes wrong or something goes well, but sort of a more proactive version of a coach. No, there's the opportunity to fail. In soccer, there's practice. I grew up playing basketball. There's practice. You get to make mistakes before the game. You get to make mistakes in a learning environment. You get drills where you're trying things out. Crocheting, there was a chance to practice. Driving, In this woman's experience, she didn't start out driving on a highway. She didn't even start out driving on a road. She started out driving in a parking lot where there was nobody around. And it was very much a safe environment. You're in the middle of the parking lot. You can make a lot of mistakes before you cause any damage. Another one is the freedom to experiment. People get to think about what they want to do. It's a lot of control and a lot of opportunity to try things out. Decide what you believe. Decide how you feel about doing things, what works for you within the context of what the expert said. So you're not going against expertise, but you're internalizing it for yourself. Others, learning by doing, competition, modeling your behavior, appreciation by someone else, interaction with a charismatic teacher or expert, and learner control. Okay, a couple more, and we've seen these, mostly pass through these. Finally, a clear relevance between the person and the real life task. What can we do next? All sorts of different experiences, and I'm going to give you an example in just a minute. First, I want to briefly talk about the old model, what I consider to be the old model of learning technologies. You have learning theory, you have technology. At the intersection is learning technologies. And to me, that's only part of the story. And it causes us to take old educational models and try to mimic them in current technological setups, rather than rethinking, reimagining, taking advantage of what we can do with the new technology. The new model, to me, draws some areas: learning theory, technology and computer science, user experience design, cognitive science. To me, that's what learning technologies is all about. And other areas that I'm probably, not mentioning, it can come from anywhere. To me, it's a very holistic approach to learning and technology and thinking about what we can do. So before I wrap up, I want to walk you through part of a potential future learning experience. This is a student, and it's a student who is in his room. He's not in a classroom. He wants to learn about ancient Greece. So in this imaginary world, ancient Greece is projected on his wall in his room. And he might ask, as he looks at this, is that the Acropolis? In fact, it is. And he would have an AI coach come up and say, it is. This is a coach who would understand him. And I guess is a step beyond what we can do now. But some things are not that far from what we can do now. The AI coach says it is. There are actually a number of buildings known as an Acropolis in ancient Greece. So this is interesting. I did not know that. The word Acropolis means the highest point, but the Acropolis in Athens is the famous one. Did it always look the same over the years? Okay, the AI coach gives some more information. We don't know much about the architectural appearance, but here's a major addition, an entry gate. Look at it. Okay, so he's having a conversation. He's learning based partly on his interests, based partly on what a coach thought he had to say and should see. And he's intrigued. He wants to ask a question. Who is Pisistratus? You just mentioned him as the person who built the gate. This was the ruler of ancient Athens, son of Hippocrates. We could go more in that direction, but he goes back to the Acropolis. It's big. Yes, it is. And this could go on and on. He could also work with others, not just the AI coach, but with peers. In this world, he then visits Greece today, and he sees where he is. The AI coach is there with him again. His peers are there with him. He can have conversations with peers. So lots of different ways we could go. Some key elements of this experience: it's experiential in a very realistic context. His coaching guidance and feedback. He has control, but the learner's assisted and advised. It's an immersive, personalized experience, and it could have had more learning by doing, and it would in a longer version. Okay. I'll gloss over this a little bit in the interest of time. We have a particular potential future training experience where he also, in his part-time job, works in a retail store and helps a customer, again, with the AI coach walking him through. So we could spend more time on this, but I know we're a little bit short on time. So again, it's a similar experience, and I have other talks posted where you can see this. If you're really interested, just let me know. So same kind of thing where he's working with a customer in his part-time job. So I'm going to jump ahead to the end and have time for questions. One quick Steve Jobs quote. Well, it's not a Steve Jobs quote. One quick quote from me that relates to Steve Jobs, which is, sometimes invention is the mother of necessity. When Steve Jobs and Apple invented the first iPhone, for example, they didn't have a focus group. They didn't have people telling them, this is what I want. They saw the need. They invented something new and different that met needs of people. They talked to people. They understood the audience. But it wasn't that they were just building what they were told to do. They were imagining, here's something that could really achieve a lot of people's goals and help them. And that's the kind of thinking that I tend to personally believe in as well. A few points to sum up. I believe strongly in designing new experiences that make the most of new technologies. Following active learning, situated learning principles. There's research behind this. It's a mix of research and creativity and imagination all rolled into one. Just-in-time learning and performance support are key, certainly in the workplace, but in today's world, people expect to be able to learn small things quickly. Not everything can be or should be a monolithic university course or course of any kind. And experiences can be immersive, relevant, personalized, and this results in learners emotionally connecting to their experiences. So to me, technology can best be used to humanize learning rather than to dehumanize it, as it often can be today. I want to see it humanizing. Put people in a position where they can get what they want, pursue things they find interesting, maintain human contact, maintain contact with an automated system that helps them pursue their own interests and learn things that are relevant to them and in a way that is relevant to them. So there's a mix between learner control and following the program. Both of those play a role, but there's technology can help us all the way. And in the end, to me, it's all about the experience. And I'll close on a quote from Isaac Asimov, well-known writer and scientist and thinker. In 1983, he predicted the world of 2019, which we have now passed. And he said, education, which must be revolutionized in the new world, will be revolutionized by the computer. And he views it as there'll be an opportunity for every youngster, finally, and every person to learn what they want to learn in their own time, at their own speed, in their own way. And education will become fun. Notice he was saying it was generally not fun. Education will become fun because it will bubble up from within. It won't be imposed from without. It will come from within. And to me, that's how I see technology. If we reimagine, reinvent, follow a lot of these principles, what we can do to build that educational environment, both in the educational world and in workplace learning. And with that, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure being here today. And there's, I think, just a little bit of time for comments. So thank you once again, and I hope you enjoyed this.
Thank you, dear David. Nice to be with you in here.
Good to see you.
Thank you very much as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think we have any questions in the live chat, but I have a very, very short question because I know that we need to move on to the next one as quickly as possible. Thank you very much. First of all, this was really enlightening, and I think it's a very important point for us to start reimagining what we always think education is. We all think that we know what education is, but it's actually, it's a becoming. It's not something that is already out there. You talked about scaling up. Actually, most of the concepts that you've talked about referred to this change in the education. But especially about scaling up, I felt like at the same time you're talking about individualizing it. Yes, we can reach bigger groups of people, but at the same time it's being individualized. So this puts a lot of responsibility on the students, on the learners, whatever they want to learn. It's their sort of, they need to step up to learn these things and find the information themselves. So in this sense, how does scaling up and individualized instruction reflect on our philosophy of education? From, if we want to reimagine it, how, I know that you have listed a couple of points for us, but philosophically, how should we look at education?
No, that's a great question, I think, and a challenging one. To me, there are a couple of things. One is the individualization I tend to view as where the technology can help, especially as it improves. So it's where the AI can come in, I think, and help. So that, you might have people who are most comfortable with a more of a coach, with an AI coach playing more of the role of a teacher. So you're not going to be in a class with person, but much more of an advisor and a much more proactive role, right? So it's there. There can be learner control, but you go into something new and you don't necessarily even know what to ask, right? So some of it is personality. Some people want to just jump in and they don't care if they know anything. They want to just try to find things. Some people And sometimes it's just a situation, right? Like, I think I myself am different in different situations. Sometimes I'm in an area where I'm fairly familiar and I like, look, I know where I want to go and I'll listen to somebody else if they will have something to say, but I kind of know where I want to go. Sometimes I don't know, right? Like even when, I don't know, for example, when I was first putting together my home video studio, for example, as the pandemic hit and all of a sudden there was no office, there was no anything, and I was going to be online all the time. I did a lot of research on my own. We have video people at our company, but they're not here. Right? They can help. But I also wanted to know they're not in my house. And I wanted to see some things that could fit and experiment. And I started doing some research on my own, but I also wanted to consult experts. So the more I could consult those people, the more I did, right? So I wanted more guidance, I guess is what I'm saying at that point. Right. And then later on it was, okay, now I can adjust. So I think it's a mix of things. And I think it's that those are not incompatible and that it's a mix of situation and personality and finding your own role, and that the best way of scaling up is sort of exactly that you have a mix and that you can help drive it, but you also are not stranded on your own.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us as well. So we'll move on to our next speaker, the last speaker of this session. Dr. Chang is a full professor in the School of Computing Information and Systems at Athabasca University, Canada, and the chair of the IEEE Technical Committee of Learning Technology. He is the editor-in-chief of Educational Technology and Society Journal and International Journal of Distance Education Technologies. And Dr. Chang is the program chair of the International Conference on Smart Learning Environments since 2015, and the general program chair of IEEE TCLT Flagship Conference, International Conference on Advanced Learning Technologies since 2017. And he will be talking to us today on games for metacognitive and skills training. The screen is yours, Professor.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm very pleasure to have this opportunity to give people a talk about the games. So I just want to pick up from the last speakers, the last Isaac words. So yeah, education can be fun. So let's talk about the games. So listen, in this topic, I would like to talk about some games that can be used to help people to develop their metacognitive skills, and perhaps also help people to train their English speaking skill. So before I start, I really need to let everyone knows, although I'm famous in terms of educational games in the field, actually, that is my outlook. So that is handsome, that is good, but I also have the internal beauty. So basically, my research goal and the direction is trying to make computers or devices that can be, providing users personalized service, personalized experience according to the data. So the data including like the logs, the records, the keystroke pattern when you type, your chat behaviors, and of course most of our learning behavior in the real world, that is also time series sequential data. So in that case, because of that, we have a lot of research that can be used in different sectors like tourism, like healthcare, hospital system, education, and gaming, of course. So, so in the future, I hope, just like Isaac saying, I probably hope to see that in the future, the computers and the devices could be your friends, your forever friends, from you born until the end, because they can learn, they can also adapt from stage to stage with you. So they will know you very much. They will know you better than anyone else, because when you are learning, they are learning. When you are reading, they are also reading. So you guys will be stick with each other forever. But anyway, because I don't have too much time. So I would like to talk about two games. The first one is metacognitive skills. So the first things we need to discuss is why we need metacognitive skills. So metacognitive skill is a little bit different from cognitive skills. So when you are knowing the language, you know history, you know physics, you know chemistry, that is cognitive skill, cognitive knowledge. But metacognitive skill help you to do the problem solving, to help you to do the association, to help you to do organizing things. For example, when I get up, I need to plan what I should do today. That is planning. And it also required me to keep monitoring my situation and trying to change the plan to make it real. So that is metacognitive skills. So why we want to do a game that can help people to enhance their metacognitive skill. That is a very simple reason, because according to a report in Canada, it says, according to their survey, their investigation, they found that people who have higher metacognitive skills, they usually will have a better life. They will get a better job. They will have more income. So that is a very important thing. If we can enhance people's metacognitive skills, then everyone can have a better life. Another thing is, so you don't want to learn, or someone don't want to learn, just like me. Why I have so many educational games? Because I don't want to learn. So I don't want to learn in class. I don't want to learn through reading. So how about let's play game? So while playing game, we can learn. While playing game, we can enhance, we can sharpening our skill. So that is our idea. And usually, even when we play game, you will find one thing, that is you will stuck. So when you stuck within a game, sometimes people they will quit. So in our game, we should consider some kind of a solution that help people to get from that. So they can move on. They can progress. If they can progress, then their skills will become better. So that is our research motivation. How can we do that? So we're trying to use the gamification elements like points, badge, leaderboard, which are the PBL. That is the first top three gamification elements that people they think they help. And we also provide a very short competition, which means when you play this game, you don't need to stuck with the game. You basically, when you have time during your commute to your work, you can turn on the game and play for 5 minutes. When you have a break in the lunch after you finish your meal, you can play this game for 5 minutes. So from time to time you play, then you can get better. Also, we provide a learning analytics dashboard, so people they can know their strengths, their weakness, their opportunity, and their threats. So in that case, they probably can be better and they can improve themselves. So that is what we want to do. We hope to make sure that they can play the game from time to time longer. So that is the game we created, Omega, online metacognitive educational game with analytics. So let's talk about how much time we develop this game. Developing an educational game is not so simple like people think. It requires a lot of works, a lot of time, a lot of efforts to do. So how much time we spend on this? We spend this game for 2 years and 6 months, and the time is still going. And how about the team? We have 2 postdocs, 2 master students, 4 research interns, 5 research assistants, and 2 undergraduate project students, they are working on this game from time to time. So as you can see, that is a very huge team to do a single game. So inside this game, we have 10 sub-games. The first sub-game is bypass. So bypass can help you to train your problem-solving skill. And the second one is viroid. So that one is also a problem-solving sub-game. You need to finish the goal within 1 minute. And we also have other games for evaluation and accuracy, your evaluation and accuracy skill. So for example, the car swap, the dash delivery, and we have a game. We have games for associative reasoning. So we have a pattern hacker. We have a crossplay. By the way, as you can see, all of our 10 sub-games, only crossplay has English. In the most of the case, we hope that our sub-games can be used by everyone. So even for the associative reasoning, because we want to see how you good in your associative reasoning, so crossplay involve English. However, we try to make sure that all the people can play. So when we develop this one, actually this one belongs to older version. If you go online right now, you will see different version. So when we develop this one, actually we use the first year, the grade 1 primary school's English. So basically, as long as you know English, you should be able to play this game. I mean, the basic English. And also we have the Pirate Hunter. So as you can see, they are also only drawing and image. We have organization and planning, that is CR2K. So you are a cyclist. So you want to choose your route, and in front of you, you can see some weather forecasting and road condition forecasting. So you can decide what kind of things you need to put in your backpack. But remember, your backpack is first in, last out situation. So you need to pack everything according to the situation correctly. And EvaQuest actually is event, landing, and value card, and so on. So you need to forecasting the situation and decide what kind of things can make your land's value is higher. And we also have a weekend barista. You need to making sure that you have enough stock for your customers when you are hosting, organizing, managing a cafe. And for Sunday or the Saturday, you will see the weather. You will forecast how many small or large or medium coffee people they will want to have, and so on. So anyway, if you want to go, you can go to omega.gameresearch.ca, and you can play this game at any time you want. So basically right now we are still in the alpha testing stage. So when you go to omega.gameresearch.ca, you will be redirected to our alpha testing website. And in the future, when we launch the game, you can still use the same URL, and then it will bring you to the real game, real version of the game. So usually when people they play game, even a good game, a commercial game, they will decide to quit. Why they want to quit? Because they see the challenge, they see the difficulties inside the game. So in the most of the case, educational game researchers, they are not talking to you about that situation. They talk to you saying, okay, when people they play the game, they can learn better. So according to our experiment. But yes, that is true. Choose for 3 months, or for 2 months, for 1 month, for one evaluation. After that, people they probably will quit the game, no matter what kind of game that is. So when they are encountering difficulty, how you make sure that they can get feedback and they can overcome those kind of difficulties. So we use learning dashboard to show them their situation. For example, you can see that your performance is getting better and better. So which means they can know, okay, as long as I play the game longer enough, my skill set will increase. And we provide another learning analytics to show them that although my problem skills is good, or although my associative reasoning skill is good, actually you can see their difference. So perhaps I can work on a particular sub-game so I can make sure that overall my associative reasoning skill can be higher. And everyone has this kind of situation, right? When you get up, you probably cannot do any organizing things. But after lunch or after dinner, you will be in a kind of state that you can do some planning. So during the time, what is the best timing for you to do the problem solving? What is the best timing for you to do the associative reasoning, or organizing, or planning, or evaluation? So according to this dashboard, you can know that. And people, they will also see that, okay, as you can see at the left hand side, my color is very light. And when I play, the color become darker and darker, which means my skill set is better and better. My performance is better and better. But then I quit the game. I quit the game for 10 days. As you can see, when I come back, my color become lightened again. So that means you need to do things continuously. You need to learning continuously. So you also need to play game continuously. You cannot just stop. So you need to do exercise continually every day. So we have an evaluation plan. In this summer, we will have like 30 players coming from different countries to join us for the beta testing. If everything's going all right, then we will do the formal evaluation in October. So we will have a 5 evaluation with at least 600 participants to recruit and to answer our research question. So we have already published some papers about this. Because I don't have too much time, I've quickly go into the English speaking skill. So why you need a game for English speaking skill? Because in the most of the country, if the English is not their second language, but their foreign language, which means in the most of the case, teachers and students, they cannot practice their English. They can do that by hiring someone to talk to them, but that is very expensive. They can do that in the class, but in the most of the case, people, they are so anxious to talk in English. So even in the class, teachers, they find themselves very hard to ask people to talk. So in that case, perhaps there are some way for you to learn how to speak in English. Some people, they use MMORPG like World of Warcraft or other games to practice their English with native speakers. However, sometimes the players, they are not native speakers in the game. Sometimes the terms will be misused inside the game, like GG. So GG is a good game, but usually that is a very sportive things. For very positive things, when people, they play the game, they will say good game. But actually, in some country, because of GG, people, they think GG actually is game over. So I'm GG, which means I'm game over, I'm doomed. So that is not correctly used. So we want to provide an environment that the teachers can create conversations for different topics, and then students, they can practice within a no pressure environment to talk to the NPC. So if you want, you can go to YouTube and search for VIP research group, and then you can choose conversation quest to take a look at how everything goes. But here I use some snapshot for you to take a look. So when you go to conversation.megaworld.gameserver.ca, you will see teacher and student portal. As a teacher, you can add your NPC, and you can associate the NPC to a conversation, and you can create your conversation. By the way, inside of this website, you will see a lot of conversation, but not all the conversation they are working, because people they try to use this, and they sometimes they don't finish their conversation correctly, or they just type 1, 2, 3 into the conversation tree. So inside the conversation, a correct conversation should be something like a list. So you can create your conversation, and you can even link one conversation to the other. So for example, you can connect one conversation. If someone say list, what will be connected to? And for students, they can join, and they can talk to any NPC. So I would suggest you to free register an account, and then trying to pick up a teacher called Susinara, who is a teacher from Brazil, and she created some conversations very completely, and you can practice your speaking there. But of course, you need to know what she asks her students to do, to say. So you probably need to take a look at her conversation tree, so you can know what you should try to say. So when you are talking, actually you are talking to the NPC. So I'm curious, how do you do in your free time? And you can talk to him or her, saying, "Oh, I listen to music. And really, do you prefer pop music or country music?" And you can say anything you want. And when you are registered as a student, you can see your performance. You can also see, do you get any in-game card as a reward. So basically, you can see this kind of things. You can select teacher at any time by here. So you can try it at any time you want now. So basically, that is conversation.megaworld.game-server.ca. And for teachers, if you want to try, please let me know so I can create a teacher account for you. For students and learners, you just need to self-register your account. So we also published some papers about this one, and this is still ongoing project, just like Omega. And we are looking for many people to collaborate with us. So today I introduce you two games, Omega and Speaking Best Conversation Quest. Omega, we have 10 sub-games for 4 metacognitive skills. We have 5-minute matches, so you can try yourself. And we have virtual players there. So when you find a match, you probably will find a match with a virtual player or a real player. And for the Speaking Best Conversation Quest, teacher can create their own conversation tree and share to others. So other teachers, they can also copy and reuse. And we also integrated the in-game cards as educational reward into this. So students, they are not only practice their English, they can also use the reward they get from the practice to play another games created by us, that is trading card game. If you want to know more, basically you can go to my website to take a look and go to the different games to play. So we are looking forward to have a collaboration with everyone in every aspect. So thank you so much, and I'm going to take in any questions you want. And as you can see, I have a smiling face. In case you don't understand, that is the two eyes. They are my communication tool, social tool like a Line, WeChat, and the smiling face is the 4 major games we have. So you can try yourself. Thank you so much.
Dear Maya Chang, thanks so much for your speech. It was very great. And always we are in the collaboration with your university. Every audience made a thanks to you for your speech. I think there is one question if you see.
Yeah, in situations where learners' learning style, the personality trait, that is very good. Yeah, very good question. Actually, we do have other research. We are talking about the learning style and the personality trait. So basically, right now, of course, you can easily to use any kind of questionnaire to collect the learners' learning style, like Fielder and Solomon or Fielder and Searman questionnaire, all personality traits. You can use Big Five and so on. So with that kind of questionnaire, you can know your learner's style or personality. That is what I say, my internal beauty. So we use that kind of things to try to actually analyze your behavior inside a learning management system like a Moodle, or analyze your behavior inside a collaborative learning activity, so we can know your personality or know your learning style, so we can actually do the change accordingly in the real time. So we will provide you personalized and adaptive content or structure for you to do the most efficient learning. So that is also the same thing in the game. When you play the game, you leave a lot of trace. So we do use clustering and the DNA. We consider your game playing behavior like a DNA and trying to find who is your father, who is your sibling, who is you're in the same family group like you. So basically, in that case, we can either match you with another players, or we can form you guys as a very efficient group to discussing the things you need. Yeah. So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Today in the keynote session, we had three valuable keynote speakers. On behalf of Near East University, I really want to thank to all of you. You gave a great insight and contribution to our conference. And our parallel session will continue after these sessions, keynote sessions. Thanks for your time and support and collaboration with Near East University. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.